Welcome to the City Council meeting of July 2nd, 2014. Could I have the roll call, please?
Salem Derby.
Present.
Dan Hagan.
Present.
Jennifer Hayes. Present. J.P. Kaczynski.
Here.
Joe McCoy.
Here.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Tamara Smith. Here. Joy Winnie. Nathan Ziegler.
Okay, could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Could I please have an approval for the minutes of June 4th, 2014? Motion and a second. All those in favor, aye. Any abstentions? Councilor Kwasinski, I think you were absent, is that correct? Do you want to abstain? Okay, one abstention. Okay, public speak time. If there's anyone here from the public who would like to address the council for something other than what's on our public, there are no public hearings, please come to the podium. Not seeing any. So, communications, I have one that I'm just going to address quickly. I was approached by Chief Motter, who is involved with the soccer fields, and there is some discussion concerning naming the varsity soccer field as well as potentially the soccer complex. And so as outlined by our city ordinances, there's a procedure to follow which involves the city council creating an ad hoc naming committee for those fields. And so I would like to, I'm following the procedure here where this needs to come in front of the council. There's no need for a public hearing or be set to subcommittee. But in a form of a motion, I would like to request the formation of an ad hoc committee to investigate the naming of the varsity soccer field and complex located in Nook Park.
So moved.
I need a second. Okay. Is there any discussion? I mean, I know it was...
Do you have names for this committee?
Well, that's part of the procedure is there's a public hearing. Public submit names. The mayor can submit. We can submit names. It's part of a process to come up with some names for possible. I mean, certainly like the softball fields, they've been named for people in the community who have invested either a lot of time.
I'm talking about who would be on this committee.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sorry. The rules say that the city council president appoints 3, the mayor appoints 2. Some of the names, I had just actually asked Councilor Derby if he would be interested. He was interested. And so we'll be putting together in the next few days the 5-member committee. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain? Motion passes. Councilor Rist, I believe you.
I have an announcement, and I'll just read it. From the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the year 2014, an act designating a certain bridge in the city of Easthampton as the Korean War Veterans Memorial Bridge. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives in General Court assembled and by the authority of the same as follows: the bridge numbered E-05-006, located on State Route 10, spanning the Manhan River in the city of Easthampton, shall be designated and known as the Korean War Veterans Memorial Bridge. The Division of Highways of the Massachusetts Department of Transportation shall erect and maintain suitable markers bearing this designation in compliance with the standards of this department. This was enacted by the House of Representatives on June 4th and by the Senate on June 5th and approved by our governor. I do hope they get that sign up if they haven't done so already. That's very nice.
Okay, thank you very much. Mayor Communications, Mayor Cadger.
Hello. Well, I actually have what I think is some very, very exciting news, so I thought I'd share that with you tonight. It's going back a little bit. On May 15th, a very, very lengthy bond rating conference call was held in my office with Standard & Poor's. I opened the call with a very descriptive outline of our community, providing them with details on our existing and upcoming projects, just some examples. 15 Cottage Street, the Mills Project, Grant Street Project, the Promenade, the Cultural District designation, the breweries, the reuse of our manufacturing buildings. Melissa Zawatsky and our director of finance, and Valerie Bernier, our auditor, responded to very detailed inquiries on financial management practices and structural balance. Also present was our outside auditor, Tom Scanlon, and our advisor, Clark Rowell. Tom and Clark were very, very pleased and impressed with our performance and the information we provided during the conference call. And I'm ecstatic to report to you their rating, which reflects their assessment of the following factors: strong economy, management conditions, strong budgetary flexibility, strong budgetary performance, very strong liquidity, very strong debt and contingent liability profile, and strong institutional framework. Due to the hard work, collaboration, and accomplishments of our finance team, Standard & Poor's raised our bond rating 2 notches, not 1, 2 notches, from an A+ to a AA. Very impressive. Again, my very special thanks to Melissa and Val for all the financial practices and sound policies that they've been instituting over the last 3 years to achieve this rating. It's my very distinct pleasure, and I'm very proud to work with them as a team and to achieve these goals and our future goals. I thought you'd be very interested in that.
Congratulations.
Very exciting.
Mayor, I'm sorry, could I ask you a question? I think it's a great, the naming of the bridge, but I don't know if I was under a rock. Was this ever discussed with you or named?
This came out of our, was in my office. It had to go, I had contacted, it was already had gone through Mr. Sybeck's office. So I contacted Senator Humison. It was Mr. Perrier that came in. He's very instrumental on following this, and he wanted to know where it was left off. So we figured it out. Senator Humison found out that it was already approved in the House, and he took it from the Senate, and then we were just waiting for it to get approved, signed by the governor. So Mr. Perry was very, very instrumental in this and has been following it for quite some time.
And was there an open, people suggest namings, or was it, do you know how the...
That was how it first started. It first started as, that suggestion, and that's how it was carried through on the floor. So there will be, a dedication, and they'll be contacting us, the state, so that we can do a dedication and be there. So it'll be very exciting.
All right, thank you.
Not a quick process.
Any additional questions? No, okay. I believe we can move on to standing committees. Rules and regulations, Councilor Rist.
I have no report at this time, but I will bring something forward in August.
Okay.
Thank you.
Finance, Councilor Hagan.
Finance, we only have one item that's currently on our agenda, which is the review of salaries and stipends. We hope to take that up at a subcommittee meeting. We are definitely going to have one later this month. We are still working on the date. It is tentatively the 23rd, Wednesday the 23rd, but that's subject to change. We do have time. We have to just make sure all the committee members can make it. And then there is a couple of items under new business, which I can take care of.
Yes, well, yeah, sure.
I'm going to take care of them now.
Since we don't have public hearings, why don't you move new business right now, then?
Okay, I'd like to, under new business, there's a couple of supplemental appropriations I'd like to do first readings on. The first one is dated June 18th, 2014. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. The amount requested is $900, and is to be appropriated from the CPA undesignated fund balance, $900, and appropriated to irrigation system, $900. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to help fund installation of an underground irrigation system at the Easthampton Community Garden on Park Hill Road. Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to move to committee, the Finance Committee, the $900 supplemental appropriation from the CPA fund to the irrigation system. Any additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
Also on this item, in the form of a motion, I'd like to set a public hearing for that at our first meeting in August, which I believe is the 6th.
Okay, is there a second for that? Second. We have a motion, a second, to set a public hearing for that appropriation on 6/15 at August 6th in these chambers. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Passes.
Second supplemental appropriation, also dated June 8th, this was also dated June 18th. Request is hereby made for the following appropriation. The amount requested is $27,500, and it be appropriated from the CPA to affordable housing and appropriated to the community room accessibility. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to fund the construction of a handicap accessible restroom, automatic door, and accessibility ramp at the Easthampton Housing Authority.
Okay, a motion is second for the supplemental appropriation of $27,500 from CPA Affordable Housing to Community and Accessibility. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And also in the form of a motion, I'd like to set a public hearing also on this item for the August 6th, 2014 full city council hearing.
Okay, is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second to set a public hearing for that supplemental appropriation of $27,500 for August 6th. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
The final supplemental appropriation tonight is also dated June 18th. The request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. The amount requested is $279,508, and it's to be appropriated from the CPA undesignated fund balance in that amount and appropriated to the Whitebrook Middle School in the amount of $279,508. And the amount requested be used for the following purpose: to construct a new football field at Whitebrook Middle School.
Second. Is there a motion and a second for supplemental appropriation of the $279,508 from CPA and his designated fund to the Whitebrook Middle School for the construction of the new football field? Any additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
And given the size of this particular appropriation, I felt we may need 2 meetings, so I won't set a public hearing on that.
Okay. Thank you. Does that conclude? Counselor?
Can I make,
Yes, Counselor.
you're talking about the 279,000?
Right. I'll try
I
to
think
get
they want to work that soon. I'm a little concerned if we're not
I don't
going to
believe-
pass it till September.
Right, but I don't believe they have time now, given the extent of work, to get it through before this football season.
So you're pretty sure even if we delay till
Even if,
September?
yes, I don't
it
believe
won't
it's going to make a
matter?
difference,
Okay.
because they would have to take, do quite a bit of extensive work and turf it, and the field wouldn't be ready for this season. They
Okay.
had hoped the process would go faster earlier on.
Okay.
This is the government.
Thank you. Public Safety, Counselor Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are going to be meeting again this month, but we haven't scheduled it as Joy is on vacation. I'm waiting for her to get back. We met last Thursday, and we are still working on the street acceptances for Willow and Autumn and the Kingsbury Lane group, and also the protocols for street acceptances in general. At this point, I would like to schedule a public hearing for Willow and Autumn. We feel like we've taken a look at everything, and we can move that forward to put on our next meeting, which is August 6th.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
second? There's a motion, a second, to set a public hearing for the Willow Circle Autumn Drive acceptance for August 6th in these chambers. Any other additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? Motion passes.
Thus concludes.
Thank you. Appointments, Counselor Smith.
Thank you. The appointment subcommittee met today at 5:30 downstairs, and we were reviewing the appointment recommendation for Kelly Ritchie for the licensing board for a term that would expire on June 2nd, 2020, so it's a 6-year appointment. We met with Kelly Ritchie to discuss. I heard a lot about what her views for the licensure board was, and after some discussion, we voted 2-0 to approve the appointment. So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to approve Kelly Ritchie to the licensing board.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second for approval of Kelly Ritchie, the licensing board with a term expiring 6/2/2020. Any additional comments or
Will
discussion?
we be meeting her?
She was at the subcommittee meeting, but she will not be here. Okay. Any other comments or discussion? No? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And then, under new business, should I go ahead and do that now? We received 4 names of mayoral appointments. Ashley Cross for the Conservation Commission for a term expiration of 12/31/17. James Valancourt for the Commission on Disability for a term expiration of 12/31/17. Justin Cobb for the Energy Advisory Committee for a term expiration of 12/31/17. And finally, Jane Sakowitz for the Personnel Director, and that term would expire on 7/21/17. 17. So at this point, I would like to make a motion to move these mayoral appointments to the appointments subcommittee to discuss further.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to move those 4 previously named appointments to the Appointments Committee. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion passes.
And that's all I have for appointments tonight.
We have one person I think we should appoint. Or maybe not.
So you want to make that up? You have it?
I would be making a motion to move that to subcommittee,
Exactly.
correct? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to move Barbara Lombard her appointment to the appointment subcommittee to further discuss.
Okay.
Second.
A motion and second to move Barbara Lombard, clerk of the city council, to appointments. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion passes. And then I forgot to tell you this, Tamara, so why don't I do it? Also, I'll set an appointment, a meeting for appointment subcommittee at 5:30 at August 6th, downstairs room B, just so we can handle those appointments. I forgot to tell you about that, Tamara.
No problem.
And I guess that concludes, let's see, ordinance, Counselor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. The ordinance subcommittee will be meeting July 22nd with the planning board to review our request to rezone 48 Parsons Street to neighborhood business, so the whole building fits into neighborhood business. And that's going to be a public hearing, a joint public hearing at 6:30 on the 22nd.
Okay,
6 o'clock, sorry.
6 o'clock. Counselor Rich, you had a question?
Curious, the zoning obviously is probably going to be agreed to by all parties. I'm curious if having that in place would be also valuable to the disposition of the Parsons Street surplus action. I mean, it seems to me if, I don't remember the law, but I think after you have that meeting, we have to vote the zone change, do we not?
After we have the
That's not a
joint,
public hearing requirement, or is it?
Right, we have to.
we have to have a public hearing here too.
We have to have a public hearing here, too. Given that, I'm wondering, and I know we're going to have this discussion at the property discussion meeting, why not wait for both? Since we don't have the zoning done, I'm curious how that...
I don't think one supersedes or precludes the other. So I think if we moved and we can, I don't think we have a motion on the table, so we could get Jessica up here, but if we move Parsons Street for, so we can put an RFP out for it. If we change the zoning during that process, it doesn't,
Sure it does.
I think.
No, I mean, well, again, we'll have them to, my feeling on it is that the RFP does not happen like that. This is a structure of putting together and stuff like that, so I suspect that our zoning change will have happened before the RFP is put out. But again, I will ask Finance Director and Planner to comment on that as well.
So, Mike, I'm curious, would you want a public hearing on the zoning request for August 6th?
That was my next step.
Oh,
That was my
because
next
I heard
step.
you say public hearing on the 22nd, and I wanted to
That's,
make
the
sure.
22nd is going to be our joint public hearing.
All right.
And I was going to ask us to schedule our public hearing on August 6th at 6:15 in these chambers.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for a public hearing concerning the rezoning of the Parsons Street School property, August 6th, 6:15 p.m. in these chambers. Is any additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And that concludes my report.
Okay, terrific. Now, this works out well. You can cover property for us. I believe when I had spoken to Councilor Kwasinski, you have potential amendments. What I would like to ask is we discuss those amendments before motions are made, because I would like to have the city planner and Melissa be able to address or make their opinions on some of your amendments, because they obviously have the expertise to say yay or nay, or they agree or disagree with. Versus if we have an amendment on the table, they cannot speak, and I'd like the councilors to be able to make their decisions with all the potential knowledge they have.
And I'm wondering if it makes more sense to discuss this all on the night of the public hearing when it comes to the property subcommittee bringing forth the motion to sell the property, since we don't have all the information before us from the property subcommittee. I had been looking for that in...
Because I know this, what I'd like to do is ask the finance director and the city planner to give us their arguments for either against any more delay on this, on this, this topic. So if either one of you could start off and talk about the time frame as far as these recommendations would have.
So I think I'm a little frustrated on the timeline on this. So I just don't see what it's been in committee for a long time, year I think, and I feel like it needs to move forward. There is some lead time within any RFP, we have to write it, and then the advertising period and all that. So it's going to be 2 to 3 months from the time that you release it that we can actually get an RFP back. So if we don't release it soon, meaning today, we're going to heat it again. And that makes me very sad. And that's all I have to say about it.
So the, what was it, $22,000 roughly for heating it last year? More than that?
Probably 25 to 27,000 in my budget.
During the coldest months of the year, we're paying over $1,000 every week or so.
Okay. Questions, Councilor Hagan?
Do you have the RFP started?
All depends on what you decide to, how you decide.
No, I'm saying, could you be working on the RFP over this month, getting it?
Have to make a decision on how you're going to release it. We have some templates, but they're based on entirely different projects.
So you're saying you can't do anything until you can't even get anything formulated till...
We've got like 6 hypotheticals going here at this point.
Okay. I guess we'll get into it further.
No, we also have a hypothetical on the zoning, and I think that's an important piece to resolve.
I'll just say in terms of the description that needs to go into the RFP about just the property itself, there needs to be a zone that's associated with it. Developers need to know what they're getting into. They need to know what they're bidding on. They need to have clear guidelines. The clearer they are, hopefully the more bidders we'll get. So we need to make sure that the RFP is crafted in such a way that developers are making clear choices on the types of risks that they're going to be taking if they decide to bid on this building.
So it's very important that this document is clear.
We need to have a clear guidance from council on where you would like to see the future of this building go. There can be flexibility. The RFP can be crafted in such a way that it's a weighted structure. So there's certain weights that are given on how a proposal is crafted. We just need to know what elements need to be weighted. What needs to be in the RFP? Is it historic character? Is it the use? Is it the lot size? All of that needs to be clearly stated so that developers understand what they're bidding on. So those are the decisions that need to be made and provided to you. I mean, we could leave it wide open and just see whatever, and have a sort of a free-for-all and see what we get. I mean, that's another way to go about doing it, but if there's a specific way that you would like to see this property moving forward, and I would say that my biggest element that I want to see preserved as part of this is the open space in the back. It is hugely needed in that neighborhood, access to open space. Our recent open space plan shows that it is in dire need. That to me is a critical element, and that also plays in part of how the RFP is crafted. Is it the full parcel or is it only half the parcel? Those are decisions that you need to make, and so that we can't even start crafting a property description until we know how many acres we're talking about.
So let me ask you a question, if you don't mind. So it sounds to me that...
We're on a panel discussion or
exactly,
something.
this is great. So it sounds to me it's very important that you have a prioritization of this list as well, is that correct?
You're going to have a list that's going to be numbered 1 through 8 or whatever it is, or 1 through 4, no matter what. Where the ranking comes in is, say for instance, on the asking price. You get a higher weight, you have a highly favorable, it's highly favorable if you are $1 million versus $400,000. There's sort of a sliding scale with each element, and so we will be working on how we're going to be rating, because we are going to be sitting in a room trying to rate each of these proposals as they come in, and they need to meet certain criteria so that we have an equitable process in terms of how the review happens.
So it would be helpful for you to know that, in the term of that property, the council's opinion is that preserving green space is more important than the money made, or vice versa. Am I correct?
That's your call to make, but for me, a critical element is having...
You would
open
like to
space.
know that information.
I think it's...
The other thing you said that I was interested, so what is your opinion, this discussion that was made about holding off until, you said it's very important that someone knows how that property is zoned.
Sure. There's only certain things they can do with it.
Right,
if it's
so
only
do you agree
residential
that we
versus
need to
neighborhood.
wait until that property has been accurately zoned or rezoned?
I need to put a zone in the RFP. We need to say that this property is zoned neighborhood business, or this property is half zoned neighborhood business and half zoned residential, so that they know what they can do with it based on the zoning. There's a whole table that's associated with each zone, and there's only certain things that can happen in each zone, so that needs to be clear. I would suggest that process moves forward in terms of the public hearing. We actually, the joint public hearing's already scheduled. It needs to be taken care of. With any permitting, you can do parallel tracks. I don't see any reason not to move forward with that.
Okay, so I guess that was my question then. So you're comfortable, especially with the time frame of basically putting together an RFP, that us voting on the zoning you don't need to have that zoning in place tonight, as long as you know it's going to be voted on a month from now.
Right, I mean, the zone needs to be determined. I mean, the flip side is that if council decides that they don't want residential there, that's not what they want not commercial in the building, then there's no point in rezoning it, because the building is already rezoned for residential. If that's the only type of use that you would like to see in that building, I think it's better to rezone it neighborhood business, so you're casting over a wider net of possible uses. You could have a mixed-use building, you can have, it's what the neighborhood's been asking for. I don't know if the market is there to provide that in that neighborhood, but that's what the neighborhood is looking for in terms of types of uses. So I think by rezoning it neighborhood business, you're still allowing residential. It can still happen, but it also opens it up to different types of retail uses that are not available under the residential zoning.
Okay. I know the mayor got up, so Mayor, did you want to add anything more to it? Did you have something to say?
I think what my opinion is, I know it's been a long time, and I think everybody's very anxious to get this property released as surplus. But from our office's stand of view, it needs to be completed before you release it. So we need to make sure that the criteria, that's very important for the scoring of the RFPs. So I don't think that you should release it until you have all the criteria and the restrictions that you want to put on it, so that there's no misunderstanding from any point of view, and then we can take it from there.
Councilor Rist?
May I speak to the planner, please, Jess? You gave us very thorough and very thoughtful recommendations on May 7th, which I think is the basis for the property committee's recommendations. Is there anything on that that has changed since you did that? Well, the question about the public hearing, my other question was based on the question of the public hearing about the zoning you answered.
okay.
But my other question was, and it may be that but from your knowledge, are these recommendations, and I was going to ask the property committee this, something that the residents of that area are in favor of or comfortable with? I'll use that term.
The information that I used to craft that was doing 2 site walkthroughs, one with a commercial developer, one with a local contractor builder, and then also taking the information that was presented at the public meeting that was held right when the property was released to the city from the school department with Mayor Mike. And we held a public meeting in here, and we had residents, and, there was a whole write-up that's on the
Everybody was
website.
comfortable with it.
I took their recommendations to the extent that I think makes sense based on all of the data, and that's where I came to those conclusions. So
Were you
yes.
able to take any of the recommendations from the following subcommittee meetings for property?
I don't think they ever really, I'm not sure, I mean, there was clear, yes, I
Do
mean,
you have the minutes from those? Because I never
I don't have minutes from them. I mean, I attended the meetings and I engaged in the discussion with the committee when I was able to attend, but I don't have a copy of the minutes, no.
And just this isn't so heated, but some of our meetings sometimes get heated, so please just ask to be recognized so we can keep some order to it. Councilor Durbin.
So, being the person who's been involved in this since day one, on a year ago, almost to the day, there's been many meetings, and as we started to move forward and looking at this, we really took the neighbors' opinion seriously. We invited them to all of our subcommittee meetings, and they were given ample opportunities to give their input, and they did. And these recommendations, as we went through and kind of crafted what we thought would be best for the city, what we thought would be best for the neighborhood, these are a very good reflection of all of the discussions that we've had. And I think that, as we wanted to move forward, once Jessica gave us these, we realized this was, the summary of all of the work that had been done, that had been laid down. And so we felt comfortable, since these were so in line with what we had discussed and what we had been talking about for the entire process, using these as what we thought would be appropriate for recommendations and requirements. And I apologize that we don't have them specifically written out on a separate piece of paper. That was a communication breakdown with the chair and myself. But there's no ambiguity of what we think and what we know is right for the parcel, at least from my perspective, after going through this. I think there's one piece that I think is open to discussion, and I think that Councilor Kwasinski is probably going to talk about that, which is the historic character. And I don't think that when we voted on this at our last meeting to bring it forward to the council, I don't think that this was a deal breaker for any of us. I think that the spirit and the intent of what we talked about was that the historical nature of the building be maintained, because that's what the abutters wanted. We felt that would be what would be best for the neighborhood. And so we, as it was stated, had a requirement, and I think Councilor Kwasinski feels like that might be more of a recommendation or something, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. But that, I think that's the only thing that's kind of...
Normally, I think the procedure would be that the committee would meet, and then the minutes of the meeting would come out, and if there was any disagreement as to what the minutes said, there'd be an opportunity at that point to work on the minutes and make sure that they're understood. I never did see a copy of the subcommittee's minutes, so procedurally I would have liked to have seen them, reviewed them, and then gone and seen the chair or someone write a formal letter to the whole council outlining what the procedure is. So there's some procedural issues that I think we really should maintain in order to sell a parcel. That informs all of us. So I am uncomfortable with that, proceeding without that letter from the subcommittee. I had anticipated, looked for it in the minutes. That being said, there is some urgency to move this forward. I certainly appreciate that, and if everyone feels that we should move it forward, that certainly is
Would it be
okay with me.
helpful for me to highlight what we felt would be requirements for the sale and what we thought would be recommendations?
Councilor Hayes had a...
Councilor Hayes.
Yes, I think so, because right now, if you go forward with this letter that comes from the planning department, it all just says recommendations.
Right.
None of them are
I mean,
requirements.
I'll tell you my recommendation at this point. I mean, I came in here wanting to vote on this tonight. I know the finance director is, as we all are, angst with. I mean, forget the time that this term of council has had this project. The last term council had it even longer. I mean, this is slightly embarrassing how long this has been on the docket. But more so than urgency, I don't want there ever to become a document out of this council that we're not comfortable with or not proud of, that we feel isn't fresh. As much as I would like to move this forward, I just don't think it's ready. I think some of the things Councilor Kwasinski has brought up needs to just be vetted so that the committee as a whole has a document. I think, as from the city planner mentioned, it would be nice if this is also prioritized, because there's a whole bunch of recommendations, and if one of the recommendations you really don't feel that strongly about, and it gives the finance director the ability to negotiate, okay, we can, that's not a high priority to us. I just, as much as I regret having to say this, I don't think the committee is ready to produce a document that is worthy of our council at this point. Councilor Rist.
I was going back and forth with this, and I tend to agree with President McCoy. I'd like to see our council do a better job of, first of all, acting on things if we can in a more judicious manner, because it's costing the city money. And I'm disappointed that we can't do it tonight, but I think it's our fault, all of us, and I'm not blaming the property committee, they worked diligently, but we could all have done a better job of moving on this. But as you said, there's requirements and there's recommendations, and I think they should be clearly spelled out. The City Council Property Subcommittee recommends the council act as follows, and it should be clearly set in the form of a motion. I would like to recommend that the property committee meet with the planner to very carefully lay this out. And the finance director, of course, and Councilor Kwasinski, if he has questions, so that they could be vetted one last time, and that we also announce to the public that we're going to do this that night with the zoning. It doesn't require a public hearing, but, and I know maybe nobody will come, but I'd like the public to have a chance to know that it's coming forward. Maybe we could get it to the press in some way, but more so that we get a document that we can vote on that is very clear, okay? And I'm sorry, I have to agree with Councilor McCoy. It's very difficult for me to vote on something. Also, I have to say that I found which we got today, I got them from Councilor Kwasinski, the city attorney's findings. I haven't had a chance to read them, so I'd like to be able to peruse those, and perhaps Councilor Kwasinski has questions that you could vet at a subcommittee meeting, so that when we get this document, it is there's more unanimity on it, from Councilor Kwasinski's point of view, whatever. But I really think we need something that we could vote on that is clear, and they need something to act on that is clear.
Councilor Hagan.
Well, one thing that Councilor Rist just said that was a little disturbing to me, and I appreciate that Councilor Kwasinski got us to this. This letter was only written a couple days ago, but I also, until today, never read what the city solicitor has to say, and I definitely would feel I couldn't be ready tonight to approve this. Also, early in the discussion, it was said that Councilor Kwasinski has possible amendments to a motion, but we don't even have the motion. I mean, it's, to me, until we get a formal motion, I don't see how we could proceed, at least myself. But with all that said, I will say that I know this committee's worked hard, and they've had a lot of meetings, and they've had a lot of meetings with the residents, and I appreciate all that, but I know it's taken a lot of time for the city, but as far as, at least my opinion of what's the city council, we do work for the citizens, and I think that particular neighborhood felt this was a very important thing for them, and I think the delay is something that had to be done, because this project has to go right for that neighborhood. They deserve a little bit of something from the city. That's just my opinion.
And it's too bad it's not the regular session where we had 2 weeks, but unfortunately it's a month. Councilor Hayes.
Thank you, Councilor Hagan, for saying that. I really appreciate that, mentioning the neighborhood. And I was going to ask that, is there a way we can schedule a city council meeting? Are we, obligated to only meet next month? I mean, maybe we could split the difference.
We certainly
If this
can
is an agenda item,
always, that is in our
we work
purview
on
to
it for 2
schedule.
weeks, and we,
I mean, if the council and I will take a vote to see, I mean, I could schedule it if we would like to do that and do a special meeting in 2 weeks. That way we would deal with this topic alone.
Is that it's 2 weeks gonna make a difference with regard to the RFP? I mean, maybe, but I want to make sure that the property committee, given that we're giving them a mandate to get the work done right.
Work's done. I mean, it's just...
You're just typing it up, it's easy?
Yeah.
Well,
okay, if you feel, I don't know.
The minutes are done, so JP can review those.
But you need to have a meeting with Jessica and write it all out, is that okay?
I mean, I don't even know if, we're very clear of, at least from my perspective, we're very clear of what we're going to be putting forward. So, I don't see any
So my
problem
point
with
is,
that.
can you tell me what the priorities are?
Yeah.
I mean, how do we, that's my point, how would the person doing the RFP know what our priorities are? I mean,
Well,
it's a
and I
budget.
agree, actually. I mean, I think it makes sense for us to have a prioritized, I don't know in the past if we've done that prioritization. I think we've left it up to the mayor to do that prioritization. I think it might be a little unwieldy for us to do that prioritization because we're all going to have different opinions. I think that's probably a power vested in the mayor, at least from my perspective. We can put our prioritizations in order, but I don't know if we need to, rank them necessarily. But that's we have a very clear set of what, using all of the information that we've gotten, recommendations and requirements for the sale of the building. So we can, if it's 2 weeks, that's fine. We can be ready for that, no problem.
Councilor Hagan.
Just one quick comment, if I heard the planner right, and she also was very concerned about the zoning, and it doesn't seem like the zoning can be taken care of till the end of the month because of your meeting, so I don't know what 2 weeks sounds if the zoning's an issue. And again, I think we're being very presumptuous.
I don't think so. I mean, I think
We're being
that,
very presumptuous to say that a joint hearing of the planning board and the city council is a done deal. I mean, that's why you have public hearings and you have hearings. I mean, it's a process that really should be fairly undertaken. Maybe there's other people out there that haven't come forward yet that don't feel it should be rezoned.
I was just going to say that, once we get an understanding of your priorities in terms of restrictions, if any, and I don't want to necessarily use the term restrictions, but the items of the recommendations, I guess, that you'd like to use is the weighted system. The zoning part is in a property description, so that can be crafted after the fact, but setting up that weighting system is another part of the RFP. It's another section of it, so we could do it after. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
Have we lost our finance director? No. Melissa, do you mind answering another question for me, please? Would a meeting a special meeting in 2 weeks make a difference for you with that?
I think what the mayor's saying is if it will lead to a decision, the next council meeting, yes. But I mean, if you're just going to have another meeting to discuss it, then the vote 2 weeks really.
Yeah, my intention would to have a vote on that, because I think we're 90% there. I think there's some 95% there that needs to be thing, but I suspect that we would have a very complete document.
So I think is it a question of whether if we met in 2 weeks and made it
That's what I'm saying. Is it worth something
worth
that,
us scheduling a
I would wonder if
full
the
council?
planner and the finance director would be happy if we had the meeting in 2 weeks instead of 4. I don't see happy, but
So you can have fun.
You're going on vacation.
The third week of July, yes.
Oh, but you'll be here for that. If they have any questions.
I don't really have an opinion either way on that.
okay.
I mean, if it's time sensitive, then.
Oh,
That's right.
it doesn't seem like it is.
It's gonna,
Councilor Rist.
given that we've already spent the city's money in heating that building, I don't know if 2 weeks is gonna make a big difference. We might sell it 2 weeks sooner, but I'm happy to go either way. I just don't know if that really makes a difference whether we meet in August or meet one quick special meeting to vote on something in 2 weeks. I'm happy to do either, but
Right,
I don't see it saving, I don't know.
I was trying to make a gesture of the council as sort of,
I agree.
understanding our responsibility as part of this. Would be a good emotion gesture, but I'm not necessarily getting that body language from our directors. So, any other questions? Okay, so I don't think we need to make a motion on this, but my opinion is, why don't we then, since we're not getting any strong recommendations from administration, we will please 100% vote on this, our final recommendations at the August 6th meeting, as well as address that zoning.
Just one quick, are we having a public hearing?
It doesn't require a public hearing.
So we're not having a public hearing.
I mean, as Jess has mentioned, there has been certainly time for public input on this, but there is not a requirement for public hearing on that.
So I saw Counselor Hayes first.
Can we receive copies of the minutes from the subcommittee so we have all of the information up to date before
They
the
should
next
be available
meeting?
through the city clerk if they've been submitted. So you get checked with the...
Just so that all of us have all the information we need,
Right.
so when we come to the next meeting, we will be
Yeah,
ready
and
to
certainly,
vote on
you know,
it.
because of the sensitivity of this topic, I would certainly encourage any counselor to attend the next meeting to participate. Counselor Wist, did you have anything?
First question is, the property committee is going to meet prior to this to finalize the document or not? It sounds like all you have to do is type it up.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you feel you need to have a meeting with
I think it would be
Counselor
important.
Kwasinski especially,
Yeah.
and with...
I think it's important because there are questions of density for the neighborhood and whether, and we discussed this at the subcommittee, but didn't come to a vote on it. And it had to do with, you know, how intensive the neighborhood already is. It's our most dense neighborhood, and do we want to consider a limit to how dense either the commercial or the residential is? And I think that discussion at subcommittee level could be helpful.
I mean, I think that's why the planner needs to be involved, because I know
And it'd be great to have
we
that,
had broached that, and that she has some, it's a moving target sometimes, talking about density, because it depends on parking and what kind of use and green space, et cetera. But, so, Counselor Derby, are you in a position now maybe to set a meeting,
You know, you need Nathan.
It would be good to have the chair. But I can, you know what, I can't set one now.
Okay,
Because
okay.
I'm not sure what his schedule's going to be.
Okay.
But we will get together. I'll give him a call tonight and see if we can figure
And so, and if, obviously, when you give that information to the clerk, and Barb, if you don't mind, if you would email everybody, let everyone know when that meeting will be.
And can we make sure that the planner's available?
When,
week of July.
Jess, when are you going on vacation? When is it?
I'm going the third week of July.
Third week of July, okay,
So
so.
we should get that done
Got
before
that thing
the...
down there.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, so
that'll
thank
be
you
forthcoming.
for your work on this. And thank you, administration, for answering our questions. I believe there is no old business. We went through new business. So I think at this point, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All those in favor? Opposed? See you August 6th, and hopefully when we know when the subcommittee will be.